So I started looking into more natural ways of keeping honeybees and invest significant kind of financially or a lot of time manufacturing your own hives. Oh, it's, yeah, my wife came up with it. It's no stings attached. So yeah, it's kind of...
Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Vine Podcast, and today we have Mark Payne. Thanks very much for agreeing to come on. I'm looking forward to hearing about all the bees and about your permaculture journey. You want to just give us a quick introduction there, please?
Yeah, like I originally started doing a lot of gardening with the influence of my parents, and just grew up kind of growing bits and pieces of food around the property that we lived on. Was only kind of a small kind of suburban sort of lot, and never really thought that gardening was much more than just poking a few seeds in and and away we go and see what happened. But kind of gradually grew more and more food for myself as I've kind of grown up, and then stumbled across permaculture. It'd be probably 5 years ago. And at the same time, kind of started with exploring bees, because I was trying to grow all this food and wondering why things weren't being pollinated in my garden. And it was just that we didn't have any bees at the time. And so, started on my journey with beekeeping and permaculture kind of at the same time. Did a few permaculture courses, but kind of struggled to connect the dots at the start and didn't realize how big the scope of permaculture really was. And then since, probably the last couple of years, started taking it that little bit more seriously and trying to think about how permaculture interacts with everything. So it's like, how do you run your business in a permaculture framework, instead of just, I'm running a business that's about permaculture. It's, kind of really trying to make it the center of what you do. So, and then from the beekeeping, kind of started with honeybees, which in Australia, they're an introduced species. So they're like heavily, they're really important species in Australia, but kind of really wanted to find out a little bit more about the native pollinators that currently exist. So that's kind of where my journey's led to now. And I've started kind of a business, fostering and kind of bee farming, as I call it, to the kids when I go do school workshops. Which is like another important part of what I do. Bee farmer, and particularly the native bees.
Yeah, that's great. We'll dive into that a bit more later. Let's start. You said you started more on the permaculture about 5 years ago. Do you want to tell us how that came about?
Oh, I'm trying to even think of what originally sparked it, but I remember watching heaps of just videos about different gardening kind of techniques, and it seemed like certain people just had a different, a completely different view, like worldview on gardening. And it was no longer just a gardening technique. It became much more. And that's, I think I probably stumbled across Jeff Lawton or someone like that. Like, he's a pretty kind of enthusiastic dude and he really sold the permaculture thing, I think, to me to begin with, it's a design science rather than just a gardening activity in itself.
Yeah, the garden's always a good place to start, though.
Oh, exactly. And it's where you end up. Like, you end up back in your garden. You can't separate your life from gardening, basically. At the end of the day, it's the sustenance.
Yeah. So you did the Jeff Lawton's online PDC, did you?
Yeah. Yep. I did that.
That was 2019.
A couple of years ago.
That's
it was just before the pandemic, kind of. So it was
that's the same class I was in.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I stayed pretty quiet. I feel like so many people had other questions, but I was just trying to absorb as much as I could. Like, there was just so much information presented. It was hard to really deep dive into a lot of it, but it was really, really good.
Yeah, I was like you. I kept pretty quiet as well. I normally do. Things. But how did you find doing it online, and how did you find the course?
Like I really enjoyed it. Like it has two aspects. Like doing it online is great because you can revisit a lot of the stuff. Like if you didn't fully absorb it, you could go back and watch the videos again. And I think there was way more content than what you'd probably get in a 7-day permaculture course. But yeah, I just struggled a little bit implementing it where we were at the time. It was just a bit hard. Like we'd just had, I think, our second child, and our twins were on the way at the time. And it was just like life was a bit hectic, and so it was more just watching the videos at the time. And then I've gradually starting to see how those ideas are now infecting me in my business at the moment. So yeah.
Like I found it similar basically because I couldn't really take 2 weeks off and leave the kids and go to a PDC. It was just not happening. So I found it a great way to get one. And then, as you say, a lot of content, a lot of just videos and a lot of stuff, exposure to a lot of stuff, which you're right, you wouldn't get in a face-to-face, but then it's implemented then after. So what did you do after your PDC then? Did you have your business going? Were you running your bee business when you working at the PDC?
I think shortly after that, I started working on a farm looking after their native bees, just kind of close to home. And they had, a couple of hundred native bee hives on a macadamia farm. And I was just doing the routine sort of maintenance, looking after them. And I have done that up until probably, late last year. And that was the real beginning of my business. But it's, since dropping that, it's been launched straight into what I'm doing now, which is, kind of my own thing. But yeah, like it was, I think the course kind of inspired me to have a little go. Like I'd always wanted to be an agricultural sort of worker, but never really thought that I could make it happen. But the bees really was kind of a halfway point as such. So.
And did you have any previous business experience or?
I've been a music tutor. Like I work in schools, but kind of I run my own business teaching kids drums and guitar. So that's kind of been my background, business sort of experience. And so I know a little bit about it, but it's the bees thing is kind of a whole nother scale. Like it's just kind of in Australia, like the sorts of tax kind of implication around primary production, like and agriculture, and that is really specific. So you've got to be all over like the kind of the numbers sides of everything, which is a bit of a challenge for me, but it's all part of it. So
how does somebody how does somebody get into the bees? How did you actually just start? You said you had an interest in it. Did you buy a hive? Did you do a course? How did it start? The interest?
Well, like in I think in the beginning, I bought a honeybee hive, because I had no idea that Australia had native bees. Like I'd grown up, getting stung by a honeybee and thinking that was the only bee that existed in the world. But it wasn't until after a while, of managing the honeybees, that I was like, man, this is really intensive work, and it didn't quite seem like they were fully suited for the climate where we were. There was just a heap of pest pressure that existed that I was like, oh, surely this isn't natural. And so I started looking into more natural ways of keeping honeybees, and then stumbled across natives. And once I kind of fell down the rabbit hole and bought my first native bee hive, it was just like, that was kind of the end. And then now it's become the focus. So that was how I started.
Great. And then how does this tie in now? So could you tell us, right? So if I'm wanting to get into bees, so what would you advise me to do if I wanted to just start and then make it a business? Would you have any advice for someone starting?
It's a good question. I think Australia's obviously a little bit different. We've got different types of native bees. So beekeeping per se is like, it seems to be one of those big investment sorts of businesses. Like if you're going to start a permaculture business, if you started a market garden, you could lease land off someone and start really small scale, but it feels like beekeeping, you've got to nearly go in a little bit to and invest significant kind of financially or a lot of time manufacturing your own hives and that sort of thing. So I'd really encourage people probably to pursue something completely different in terms of like the other sort of native bees, and like heaps of people have seen them, but I don't know if you can see that, but this is my newest like little thing that's like trying to introduce people to bees on a really small scale and encouraging diversity rather than just mass populations of the same type of bee, because that's a lot of the time whenever we like start a business, it ends up being just this monoculture sort of feeling, because we go, oh, this particular bee we can make money out of or whatever, and so we'll just propagate those bees heaps, and then we'll be able to make money out of the business. But it's not necessarily the best thing for the environment, having 100 native beehives just in one location. So yeah, I'm like, it's a tough one. Like there's probably more need for commercial native bee guys, but it's a really hard thing to get into, particularly because it's hard to buy native beehives at the moment. Like it's hard to like buy a massive load of stock to be able to offer different services. So yeah, you'd have to really probably get in with someone, and I'd recommend a couple of years just trying things at home, and even probably partnering with someone else in the industry to really get a kickstart. I think that was the thing that really helped me, was kind of being mentored a little bit and learning on the job, because it's not really a career path as such at this point in time anyway. Hopefully it is in the future. but yeah the kind of solitary bees is the other type of native bee that, like, they exist everywhere in the world, in lots of places in the world, but in Australia we just have a multitude of them, and they're so in need of like more habitat than potentially, like at the moment the stingless bees, which are the native bees I deal with, it's kind of like the public's caught on to the need for more native bees, but it's still, solitary bees are a bit of that, like, oh, does anyone even know what a solitary bee is? We get confused about them. They're small, so it's like people will be like, oh, it's a fly or an ant or something, let's kill it, and that sort of thing. So it's, but there's scope for lots of different areas in beekeeping, I think, but it's just trying to come up with your own niche so that you're not just replicating another commercial production, really.
And then do you so you manage your own hives as well?
I've moved in, like I bought a lot of stock off the farm that I was working at. When I finished up there, they're moving out of macadamia, so they didn't have the need for the bees on the farm anymore. Like I purchased a lot of stock there, so I manage my hives. I help people who have bought hives previously with their management at home, and occasionally I'll still work for other beekeepers in the area as well, just to kind of fill it out.
Yeah, that's good. So it seems as if you've sort of fallen under it, but it's what I think noticing the pattern is it's being active and doing things. These things tend to fall into place anyway.
Yeah, like you just got to, it is a bit of right place at the right time, I think. It's kind of, and being open to opportunities as well, like kind of seeing that there's positive movement in different spaces. So, because like I would have originally, I think the idea of working on a macadamia farm with how much they spray and everything, like, would really have like gotten in the way of me wanting to do it originally, but I was so glad that I kind of got over that aspect and just had to go, like, because it's kind of propelled me into where I am now. So
and you're So you still doing the drums and the music stuff?
Oh,
Teaching?
a small amount. It's not like I'm really trying to hit the bees up as my full-time gig. But yeah, it's still just we've got 5 kids, my wife and I, so it's been a big. I probably feel the risk more, but just that yeah, they're kind of going. You need to provide for your family and do the right thing by them. So I'm just holding on to a little bit of teaching, just as my kind of the safety net per se for money coming in, and yeah, hopefully we'll move into the bees full time.
Yeah. So what's all the, so you have different income stream then? You said you still manage some hives up until recently. You have your own
Yep.
hives. Is that a product you have there that you sell?
Yeah. So like the native bee industry is pretty, like it's still emerging in Australia. So the main like money maker is selling hives just to the general public sort of thing. And because people are starting to go, they don't sting, so anyone can kind of have them in their backyard and they don't pose any threats or like they don't create issues, and they're native, so it's kind of like people are really getting on the bandwagon for that. So it's really, you're kind of introducing people to I think someone coined it like a pet trade nearly, like we're selling like a different a pet with a purpose. So yeah, and then that's kind of the main income at the moment. And then I do like taking my education background. I do workshops in kind of preschools, schools, and yeah, and educate adults a bit about bees, and just trying to get people a bit more aware that native bees are important too. So like, yeah, and try and change that perception that the honeybee is kind of the be all and end all. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's good. You've got multiple income streams and then multiple interests as well to keep that
Yeah.
the different types of bees, the biodiversity up. And do you have your own do you have your own garden?
Yeah, we live on about an acre, just like we're in the Tweed Shire, which is right on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. So it's subtropical sort of climate. That's a funny thing, actually. Like Jeff Lawton, you do his course, and I think I'm probably only an hour from his place, but it was still, at the time, it was still too limiting to go and spend a full 7 days there. Like it felt so funny doing his course, knowing that, yeah, it was recorded probably only just down the road. but yeah, like, yeah, it was just funny. But yeah, so we've got our own garden, which, yeah, like we practice all sorts of different like permaculture techniques in our garden. Really loving like syntropic agroforestry. Like that seems to be a bit of a hit in the tropical climates at the moment. Using eucalypts and that sort of thing to be the canopy, and yeah, just and providing your mulch. Like that's one of the biggest things that I'm doing at home at the moment. It's really quick, but it's a bit more what do you call it, like fine tuned than food forest sorts of plantings. Like you're still back to planting in rows, but you're using, yeah, so you're making it just a little bit more efficient than kind of food forests per se. So
Yeah, I've seen this in tropic stuff. It's very interesting. The layers and the time. So you're designing over time, and
yeah, it was such a hard thing to get into at the start. I just fully didn't get it, and like planted a couple of different things and just completely screwed it up. And then like I've gone back and gone, oh wow, this like really works when you get the timing right, and when you have enough kind of mulch being created that you're not using any inputs. Like it's pretty phenomenal, really. Like I feel like the idea really birthed out a permaculture food forest sort of thing, but it's taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that for my climate. Where there is some work going into syntropic temperate syntropic agriculture, agroforestry in temperate climates, but I may do it when I get more land. So I have an acre. That's quite a lot. And do you want to tell us about what you grow there? So you do the syntropic stuff. Do you grow your own row crops, family food?
Yeah, like I've got a couple of wicking beds, like old what do you call it? Those water containers, like cut in half sort of thing. Like I grow a lot of just like the basic kind of veg, like your peas and beans, your annuals, like in that sort of setup, because it's really like easy and contained. Like, and then we've got more like the standard orchards set up within the syntropics, so we kind of grow. Like it's all in its infancy. I've probably planted maybe like 2 years ago the main stuff. So we're just starting to get like the first fruits of a lot of the things. But I've invested pretty like hard in a lot of tropical root crops like taro and cassava and that sort of thing, just as like emergency things. The kids really don't need them just yet, but hopefully I can gradually start to introduce and change their taste buds over time. But it's they just grow so well where we are. Like I've tried growing potatoes like every year since I was probably like 10, and it just doesn't translate to growing a subtropical root crop that just seems to just love it. With no pests or anything like that. Trying to think, put me on spot a little bit with the growing. We grow a lot of bananas. Bananas is like the next probably like favorite thing that I like to grow. Dragon fruit's another kind of subtropical fruit. They kind of look like a kiwi fruit inside, but can be heaps of different colors, and they grow on like a really spiky cactus sort of vine. That's like, so yeah, the fruit stuff's really in its infancy. Like I think our property had maybe 6 custard apple trees, which are like probably like 30 years old, and they produce quite well. So we use them a fair bit and sell them to neighbors and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's kind of, I just can't wait for like a lot of those fruit trees to really kick into gear in a couple of years' time and start producing like way more than what we get out of them. So
yeah, I prefer the perennial stuff too. It's less work. As you say, you get it up, but the syntropic stuff is really fascinating. It's hard to get information on it. Well, it's not so easy anyway. It's still quite new. I think there's a lot of stuff in Portuguese if you speak Portuguese.
Yeah, yep. I think that was the main barrier, but there's lots of guys that are practicing it like in the local area here that have like kind of pioneered the different crops. So we all kind of are now a bit more aware of what really does grow well in our areas. But yeah, like you said, it is a bit limited to the subtropics at the moment, and it's kind of waiting for someone to really come through with like the knowledge and the just the practical application of it in just the different climates. Arid, particularly, like I think arid climates would probably work really well. It's just trying to pick the right species and probably giving yourself a little bit more grace and going, it might take longer, and we might have to use a lot more weed species at the start to really turn things over. So
did you ever get a run out to Jeff's place, the tuna farm? Did you ever go out after your PDC?
No, I've it's been on the list. I see the farm tours come up, and I kind of do want to go down and have a go, but it's just that I think after doing the course, you kind of go, you've seen a lot of what they do there. So I don't know that I'd have that many questions. Like there's a few other different sorts of farms that I'd probably really love to go to. Like because I'm really more suburban based, like it's like I'd love to see just the more intensive sorts of examples of permaculture doing really well, because that's where I think 90% of people are going to be is in the suburbs or in the cities, and it's kind of like it's got to work in small space or or we're still relying on those like the bigger producers outside kind of the main areas, and so it's just more travel, more more risk that things can go wrong in the process.
Yeah, well, I think the small spaces are the most productive. Spend time on them, and especially if you're doing this tropic. Well, I wouldn't consider an acre small. my whole property is a tenth of an acre.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I always see just like the Jeffs who like live on the massive kind of what I kind of call farms, like where it's multi sorts of dwellings, and bigger areas, so you can kind of let areas go back to the wild kind of nearly completely, and you're managing water just on a completely different level. Not that all the same theories are really important in the small spaces, but it's just like managing it on such a different level. So
no, it's good. You're lucky you have an acre. I'm hoping to.
We're very very blessed.
Yeah. So you mentioned at the start there about now you're not just running a permaculture business, but employing the permaculture in the running of your business. Do you want to talk more about that and tell us more what you've found?
Yeah. So like specifically, the one of the major things that I've noticed in the start was like obviously I can't have the numbers of bees that I manage all on my property at home. So I've kind of tried to think about it in terms of the zone mentality, that we go, oh, zone 1 is your kitchen garden or whatever, and then you're kind of branching out as the things that you visit less frequently. So I've tried to position my hives a little bit like that. So all the ones that I need to check regularly, I'll have them at my place so that it's like they're right there. I'm not wasting time driving or kind of transporting bees around just to see them. And then the ones that are a bit more established, healthier, can be those further distances. But then even I kind of took that mentality at the start, and then have even taken it onto one more scale just in the last couple of weeks of going, like, I thought I had all these really great locations for bees, but some of them were like half an hour drive from my place, and I was kind of like driving all over the place just to go and visit my bees. And it'd still take me over a day to visit all the different sites, which I was like, I need to scale it back in. And I kept on going, oh, like the suburb that I live in is just amazingly treed, and there's lots of other similar properties to mine where I keep quite high numbers on my property. So I was like, why don't I put bees all through my suburb, keep it super local? So I'm kind of supporting that, the local food production. If people have got their own garden at home and they want to increase their pollination, they can host my bees at their house in kind of smallish numbers, but it means they're only like a minute from my place, so I can check tons of hives in half the time that I used to be able to. So that's kind of the main ways that I've seen like the zone thinking applied to beekeeping in Australia. The other, it's really kind of hard to explain, but there's lots of different kind of layers of permaculture, and the main one was kind of like, are we looking after kind of the people, the animals, and the planet at the same time? Like often humans kind of get one of those really good, and the other two are compromised, like vice versa. So they might be like really looking after the people in the world at the expense of the animals and the earth, or they might be going, oh, I'm really pro animals, but they're not really integrating it well with the planet, and it's like where it's at the compromise, or people are at the compromise, and your relationships suffer because you're too focused on your animals. So it's like I'm kind of seeing how it's just really good ethics for life, as far as going, the business is our mode of income, but it's like it can't compromise the home relationships that we have. And also, like, am I doing things that are damaging to the environment as a part of the business? So trying to like with the transporting the hives, going, how can I move it so that they're all closer, so I'm not driving as many kilometers just to do the same job as I could be locally. And even the one other thing that I've been tossing over the last couple of weeks is just the ethics of, like, and I mentioned it a little bit before, but like of, just overpopulating one species of animal. It's one of those things that we tend to do. Like, we just get too excited about one idea, and it's pretty easy to do. And we just go, this is great. Let's just replicate, instead of going, this is great, but we don't need to overdo it. And we need to still bring about balance between the species. So yeah, that's kind of the main ways that I'm seeing permaculture filter into my business. Also, like, just ethics around money. How much do you really need to earn to have a decent life? There's all these kind of just basic questions that you got to ask yourself. And it's kind of a really, humbling experience to go, you've got ambition, but it's not unrestrained.
No, that's that is true. No, it's what we're you're accepting feedback, you're observing, you're constantly monitoring. You're not just tunnel vision going, right, bees, let's get a million hives. It's a good thing that it's a good lesson for people. I think that you could share that. Basically, it's not all about getting rich, and you have to have some.
Exactly.
You're doing good, and you're conscious. You're doing these things consciously, which is very important.
Yeah, like a lot of the other startups, like, not to bag them, but it's like a lot of other permaculture startups can kind of end up just getting down that train of just becomes just a money machine. And it's kind of great that they're getting the permaculture message out, but you kind of go, is there a restraint? And we need to stop and ask ourselves really what's the most important thing. And that's why, like, the other thing that I'm kind of hoping to do soon, these ones, this is my product, what do you call it? This is my paid advertisement. So
you work away. Tell us all about it.
It's I wanted to kind of come up with a bee hotel that actually worked. In Australia, we have, like, Bunnings is the like the hardware store. I don't know what they have in the UK, but like Bunnings sell these really dodgy bee hotels that are like made out of the cheapest wood possible, and they look nice, but the functionality of them is really, like, to be desired. So it's kind of, I was like, oh, there's such a niche for someone to come up with an idea that have a bee hotel that actually works using in a responsible sort of manner. So I've piloted this one, and I've been experimenting a fair bit, but it's coming into winter now, so I'm going to wait till spring to really kind of launch these. But so they're called Bee Backpacker. I just started a little Instagram if anyone wants to follow it. But it's literally just a block of Aussie hardwood, kind of sourced from one of the mills around locally to us, and then I've drilled really specific sized holes and depths. That's the main thing that people seem to get wrong with the bee hotels, is they're not drilling deep enough into the wood, or the holes are too big. So you see a lot of bee hotels with these massive bits of bamboo in them, but the Australian bees really kind of max out around the 10 mil diameter sort of thing in your bee hotel. So so you want to have at least like a couple of different size holes, and they want to be at least 10 to kind of 15 centimeters deep, which is quite hard to do in a bit of hardwood. Like at the start, I must have gone through so many drill bits just trying to get the drilling right and kind of not go too fast or not too slow, just to get that kind of right. But it seems silly, but it's like Australian bees love Australian hardwood. It's kind of it's something that you go, oh, why didn't we think of that earlier? But so I'm really kind of excited about that. And one of the things that I was like, if I'm doing this, I want to give back somehow to the local bee population. So what I'm doing is every time someone will buy one of these, we're going to go put one out in kind of the local bush somewhere, or a couple of the farms that I store my bees at, they've got like just little natural regeneration areas. So we'll put them in there, or we give them to schools and that sort of thing, just to try and introduce kids to the wide world of bees. Because there's I think there's over 1,700 or something native solitary bees in Australia, and they're so colourful and just amazing, different, diverse creatures. So.
No, that's great. We'll hook you up with Crystal. She's in Gladstone. She's Vine Australia.
Yeah, sweet.
So, I'm sure she could sell them on for you when she gets herself sorted. No, I think that's class. That you basically you buy one, you give one away free, and looking after the bees. That's a great idea. So basically, that's what's your plan now for the next going forward? Have you any plans for the future? World domination?
World domination. I've got lots of plans. Like, we've just had our 5th child, so I'm kind of trying to take things slowly just over this next period and enjoy just the blessing of kind of having young kids and that sort of thing. But I hope to, in the future, put together an online sort of native bee education resource, because there's not really a well thought out version of that that I know about anyway. There could well be, but I just want to, I sell native beehives, and so I want people to go and have resources that they can go back to if they want to learn more about the bees that they've got in their backyard. I've just found a lot of online forums are great places to learn, but they can be just really kind of repetitive, or they can be just dominant people in there that just push one agenda and one opinion, and that's it. I really want to put together a resource that opens up to all different ways of managing bees, rather than just this is the holy grail of native beekeeping. So that's my main focus. The native bee industry is still emerging, so the native bee honey is another interesting area that is kind of just developing. People really focus on Manuka honey as being medicinal, a medicine sort of food. But native bee honey is kind of said to have been kind of nearly on similar or higher grade medicinal value. So as more study happens about the antimicrobial benefits and that sort of thing, hopefully the market will increase there. And same with the propolis, the wax and all sorts of stuff. So it's hard to know where it'll end up. But I want to keep doing my preschool and school workshops. That seems to be gives me a real buzz anyway, going to schools and trying to introduce them into bees at a young age, so that it's they're not scared of insects. A lot of kids grow up these days just want to kill every second insect that appears. And half of them, mean us no harm. So it's just trying to do that.
Because they all need protective. Because I remember in the 1980s, if we went to the beach, and I remember the car, the headlights being covered in bugs. And now that doesn't happen. And it's
it's
the biodiversity, the bugs have gone. There was millions of bugs, and it's just doesn't happen anymore.
Well, even I'm even noticing the amount of kids being stung by a honeybee these days in Australia just seems to be so less. It's just even though lots of people have been taking up keeping honeybees since the flow hive has kind of come into existence, it still seems like kids that the bugs just aren't hanging around. Well, they're off somewhere else at the moment anyway. The other thing I'm really passionate about, just to harp on for a little bit longer, but I've just realized how much beekeeping is a really multi-skilled job. To be able to, you've got to be a woodworker to make hives. You've got to be a business person to be able to add up the money to make sure that you're actually making money and not just like running into debt. And then you've got to be hands-on skilled with the bees. You've got to understand different flora and how it all interacts. So like, I'd really love to, in the future, if the education system in Australia adopts it, is trying to connect lots of different areas in a school to work together. So you might get the business kids that are studying business to set up even a legitimate business where they're selling the honey or the empty hives that are produced by the woodworking students. And then the agriculture students are looking after the bees, and they'll harvest the honey. And then, and the food tech, or like the food production, we'll be like bottling it up and jarring it, and then people will be marketing it. So you like, instead of the education system being completely separate, it's trying to tie it all together around a common purpose. So I think that would be just like amazing. Because I just wish like at school that agriculture or permaculture would have been validated as a career path. Like, it's just like, a lot of the time you just wouldn't have been taken seriously if you said, oh yeah, I want to be a farmer when I grow up. Like at school it would be like, oh, why do you want to do that? Like, but it's like, it's perfectly valid and we need more of them. So it's like, we've got to start where the kids are, and hopefully
I
progress.
think that's class. I'd want to go to that school. Definitely. That is class. I think it's good that you're thinking like that as well. They tie that on, and let's hope that we can all do that. So back to so you sort of missed out on that one. You create the value added products as well, the honey and the wax. Do you manufacture that yourself as well?
Yeah, I've just started. Like, a lot of my focus had been on propagating bees up to this point, but I'm really starting to think like the honey is somewhere where the future of native bees is going to be. And I always keep kind of a jar of it around home, but it's just, it's hard to justify it, because like literally like a tiny little jar like that is potentially worth like $100, because they produce such a small amount of honey. The value is relative. So they'll produce a kilo a year, whereas a honeybee hive in Australia might produce 60 to 80 kilos. So it's just it's a really different sort of product. So you've kind of got to market it differently, and people have got to understand the kind of specialness of the product. So, but also like it's it's still just in that phase where we don't have enough solid facts about the honey. So it is to some degree hard to sell it as a medicinal honey, because Manuka has its different ratings and it's such an accepted product now. So we're really just kind of finding our feet in that sort of regard.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. But $100 for a wee tub might be.
It's crazy, but like I'll sell it to people, and they like, you might only, like if you've got like dermatitis or something, you might only use a really small amount every couple of days on a skin condition, or I'm trying to think, or on cut. Like if you get a cut, you can use it on cuts. You can eat it, and it's really quite like an amazing flavor. It just tastes like the Australian bush. Like, it's still got the sweetness of normal honey, but it's there's just that added depth. Like you kind of compare it to like an aged Scotch or something, compared to just beer straight up. Like it's just you've got to try it if you're ever in Australia. Make sure you try some.
No, that's definitely on the bucket list. Mark, that's great. Have you anything else you want to add that we missed, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I think we've covered quite a good amount. Like, if anyone wants to kind of learn more, they can kind of visit my website, or there's heaps of information now about native bees, particularly for people in like the Northern Rivers area of New South Wales. We're hoping to start a branch of like the national association soon, to try and connect beekeepers, so that we can just help each other out and unite maybe over different causes. So if we want to help repopulate, because our area suffered like crazy bushfires and floods in the last 5 years. So it'd be great to have a whole team of people to kind of unite and hopefully put some more bees out into those areas that got just absolutely smashed.
If you can give me them links, I'll put them in the description.
Yeah, awesome.
And then people can find you. We forgot to actually mention your name, which I love.
Oh, it's my wife came up with it. It's no stings attached. So it's kind of, it takes people a bit to get it, because they'll see my car and my car's got it written on the side like no stings attached, and everyone's like, what's no strings attached like me? But I'm like, no stings, like the bees don't sting. And then they're like, I get it now.
I should have mentioned that at the start, because I thought it was brilliant.
No, it's really cool. And the other one, this one I'm actually pretty proud of too, but it's like, because solitary bees nest by themselves, they don't function as like a hive of bees. This one's called the Bee Backpacker. It's kind of like they'll come and you're just providing the habitat in your backyard, and the bees will come in and stay for a period, and then they fly off and all the bees hatch. So you kind of that's my other little play on words.
Oh, very good. You've definitely named the names, haven't I? Nailed the names. Mark, thanks very much for joining us. It's been really interesting, and I wish you all the best, and we'll keep in touch.
Yep, sweet. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So guys, thanks very much for listening. It's been Mark Payne, no strings attached, and if all the links are in the show notes. Cheers.
Cheers.